What do you do with an old, out-of-date book? What do you do with an armful of old encyclopedias that were printed in the 1950s? Well, if you're an artist, you think, I will take this raw material and make a project out of it. And that's what Matthew Herring did, and he asked me to collaborate with him. And that's what I'm going to be telling you a little bit about today. So he decided for each letter of the alphabet to collaborate with one or more artists on that theme, and when he came to H, he contacted me. I decided to make an experimental short film, which I'm going to show you shortly. What I decided to do was to look at the pages he gave me, and unfortunately they just didn't excite me about an obvious thing to make. So I thought more about the actual letter H, how it is a sign, and I had this thing in my head, this imagination of what to make, and it would be about the sound of the letter H. This is what I made, and I'll talk to you about it in a moment.
Ha, hey, he, ha, ho, ho, he, ho, ha, ho, he, ho, ha, ha, he, hu, hi, ho, ha, he, ha, hey, ha, ho, ha, ho, ha.
I got to thinking about sound being embodied when it's a human voice. So I wanted to say the letter H in as many different ways as possible, using the different parts of my speaking apparatus, the tongue and the throat and the roof of the mouth and the teeth and various ways. And that became the sound for the little animation. We happen to have in the house a computer artist and animator, Ben Gregg, and he very patiently worked together with me in the animation. He looked at the sound and he could see where an H sound was louder, and he would then select one of the louder letters that had been cut out and place it in the animation. And when I was thinking about the sounds of this film, I realised that it referred to several other instances of that sound. And one of them is in My Fair Lady, where Eliza's been taught to say her H, not drop them. And so she's given this line to say about in Hartford, Hereford and Hampshire, hurricanes hardly ever happen. And then finally the song Oh Superman, which has the sound right at the very start is a very so the way the little short film I made ends is with the sound of almost like breathing of that letter coming out, that and it's like that elemental thing which is breath and air. That's why I gave it the final title, Encyclopaedia Becomes Air. Also for people who are interested like myself in the Christian myth of creation, there is that sense in which the original body of Adam takes life whenever the breath of the Creator is put into his lungs. The letter H is a very ordinary letter. We have it in so many of the words that we say, and it's something we maybe don't think about much until we hear something like this little film and you hear it all on its own. The microphone hears it slightly differently, and it tends to cut out a little bit with the H's, but each person says it differently, and in the same way we all have different conversations, and the words can be different and in different tones. It could be dramatic, it could be mundane, it could be factual, it could be purple prose, it could be poetry. So there can be a whole different style of the letter being used. Although it's the same letter, it's performing the same basic function. The tone in which it's said can vary enormously. And again, that's part of the reason why I wanted to cut out a variety of letters, as well as making it more visually interesting as well. Working with sound is similar to painting. There is a texture. There is a ground, a background, and there's a foreground in it as well. And I kept the audio background really quite simple. But if I had played a drum and a rhythm or music, it would have been a completely different effect on the listener, on the viewer. It would have carried a different story and a different impact, a different pace. So I was thinking about it as being an encyclopedia as a flat object, but I felt like Matthew was making it into a 3D object, and in fact it becomes a sphere. It looks a little bit like a globe. It's another whole world of learning placed together layer by layer as he's put in what other people have made. Also, because they've been put on a round surface, then those flat things like text and pictures fold themselves up in interesting ways. They're not just flat. And I heard a talk by Matthew in which he said that he liked language because it had a certain suppleness and a capacity for ambiguity, is the way that he put it. And if you look at his work, you'll see he works very much with words on his website. And this project is extraordinary in that it's taken so many things. I mean, an encyclopedia is purporting to represent the world of knowledge all in one place, and he is putting it into a round format, and he's moving it, he's rolling it through the landscape, and sometimes it gathers soil, sometimes he rolls it across a field, or it gets dust from the road, or else there's a particular case in which he had chickens in the garden and they were unfortunately taken by a fox, and so he rolled the ball kind of around that area that they had lived and put some feathers on the ball as well. And also there has been a variety of artists in different disciplines taking part. So there's been various things that have been made, including collage, but the whole thing itself is like a collage because each page is stuck on top of the other and it's placed on top of other words and other text. So I love that because I am very interested in all the arts and how they work together and how they are different when they're placed together. Another thing I became interested in for the Encyclopaedia project was the idea of neologisms, new words, because since the 1950s we obviously have a lot of different words coming in each year even, so a lot would have built up since that book was printed. And when I thought about words beginning with H, one of them that came to mind was hashtag, which itself actually looks like the form of an H in a sense. And in a way, hashtag is a way of organising information across the internet, and a little bit like an encyclopedia puts it under letters A, B, C, D. So there's a similarity there. I think further research would be fascinating to look at the new words that have come into use since the 1950s. But that's another whole project. So I hope you'll be interested more in this project and go and look at the page created, the website page created by Matthew himself. See with the other things that have been made. There's some tremendous things and very, very visual. So there's one idea of what to do with your rule books. Bye for now.